Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Josh, and in this week's episode of Wednesday Watchlist, we're going to be recapping the latest episode of The Traitors, which is Season 3, Episode 5, and then we're also going to discuss two things that I've just recently watched, something that I want to watch and that I need to watch, and then we're also going to discuss some upcoming movies that I want to see in the month of February. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on in to recapping the latest episode of The Traitors. So episode 5 picks up right where episode 4 left off, which is we see all three of the traitors huddled up in the turret, deciding who they're going to murder for the night, and the traitors decide that they're going to murder Robin, who is again yet another housewife. Moving forward to the game they play in this episode. The game they play in this episode is a riddle solving game where they have to figure out the answer to riddles and then pick an urn that has the word underneath it that is the answer to the riddle. The entire group's pictures are posted up on walls, and if you get the answer to a riddle right, you then get to take somebody's picture and put it up on the shield board. Now there are 2 spots open for a shield with this game. The thing here is just because you get an answer right early on doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get a shield, because someone later on could get an answer right and take your picture down to put themselves in your spot. And so immediately after the game starts, Bob H stands up, I believe at the first question, and he is thinking to himself that he just needs to get a shield. I don't even think he really listened to the riddle, but he immediately went for the urn that had the word shield underneath it, thinking that that would give him a shield. And I'm just like, why would you? And of course, it wasn't the answer to the riddle, so he had to then sit out for the entire rest of the game, because if you get an answer wrong, you get disqualified. And then the game continues, and then we get to Danielle. Now, up until this point, everybody who had gone before Danielle had taken their own picture and put it up on the board to get a shield, except when Danielle gets an answer right, she decides that she wants to be Miss Selfless Queen, and she decides that she wants to put up a picture of a housewife on the shield board instead of putting herself up, which immediately sends up red flags in like everybody's brain. Before Danielle, everybody was picking themselves for the shield because, again, everybody here is worried about being eliminated or murdered. Nobody says anything the first time she does it. The housewife she chose is like, oh, that's so nice, thank you. And then Danielle gets another riddle right. She guesses correctly. And so then the second time around, instead of choosing herself, she then decides to choose the person that she took off of the shield board. She like feels bad for him. She then decides to put him back up and take down the other person but leave the housewife. And so again, this sends off even more red flags, because it's like, okay, the first time you did it was a nice like selfless thing to do, but again, that threw up initial red flags. But then when she does it the second time, it's just like red flags just go off in everybody's brain, because they're like, okay, the first time she did it, it was weird and was a little bit dumb, but now she's gotten another answer right and she's still choosing to not put herself on the board. And I forgot who says it, but somebody who's sitting on the bench watching her play, she's like, are you not worried about being eliminated? And so immediately after hearing that, she's like, she literally just freezes, because she's just like, oh shoot. And I'm like, why would you not pick yourself? Like, okay, the first time I get it, but like if you have 2 chances, that second time she should have picked herself and put herself on the shield board. I don't know why she decided she was going to be Miss Selfless Queen this entire game, but I'm like, that sends up so many red flags. And then all of a sudden she starts crying, and I'm just like, okay, I get it if she's just innately emotional, but I'm just like, why are you crying again? And then moving forward after the game, a lot of people are still suspicious of Nikki and Ciara, because they were the other 2 people that were in the coffins alongside Jeremy. Jeremy's already gotten off the show, but Nikki and Ciara are still on the show. So people suspect that one of them has to be a traitor, because they're going off of the theory that the traitors put one of their own into the coffins because that was allowed. So they all think that the traitors did, when in reality they didn't. But, you know, they don't know that. But the entire group is still suspicious of Nikki and Ciara. And then after the game was over, because Danielle slipped up so bad at the game by not nominating herself for a shield twice, in the car ride back to the castle, she's like, I want to tell you guys something, but I don't know if I should, because I don't want this to get back to her. And she's just like, I don't know if I should tell you guys this. And then she's like, but I think Carolyn is a traitor. And immediately after she said that, I'm just like, what is happening? Rob has already blindsided the traitors. And at the beginning of this episode, Carolyn and Danielle were both obviously worried that Rob was going to do the same thing to them. And so I'm like, for Danielle to then immediately point the finger at Carolyn and be like, no, I think she's a traitor. I'm like, why are you pointing the finger at who is at this point your closest ally? Like, again, you and Carolyn at the beginning of this episode were both very distraught and very worried that Rob was going to turn on either one of you, if not both of you. So for Danielle to just be like, oh, I think it's Carolyn. I don't know what it is, but I'm like, my girl, she's not thinking strategically. I think what she should have done is been like, oh, I also think Rob is a traitor. That's what she should have done. But for her to just immediately be like, oh, I think it's Carolyn, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you're worried about Rob coming after you or Carolyn, if not both of you, and so you go after Carolyn instead of going after the person who literally just sacrificed one of your own. The math is not mathing. And then so moving forward to the round table, Lord I don't know if I'm even going to say his name right. Lord Mountbatten. I don't know how you say his name, but anyway, the British royal person dude, he decides that he's going to start us off here, and he immediately names 3 people he thinks are traitors. He says Nikki, Ciara, and Rob. And Rob immediately gets on the defensive, and he's like, I'm not a traitor. And then one of the other people in the group is like, well, then how are you so sure that Bob the drag queen was a traitor? Like, the only way somebody can be 100% sure, which is what he said in the last episode, that somebody is a traitor is if they are a traitor themselves. And he's just like, well, no, it was just a gut feeling. I saw his behavior, I saw the way he was acting, and I saw the way he came after me after I accused him of it. So it was just like, he pretty much just says it was the way he was acting is the reason why he said he was 100% sure. But I'm like, that's a very weak defense. Like, he should have never said that he was 100% sure that Bob the drag queen was a traitor, and that would have saved him this whole thing. Like, he should have simply just said, oh, I think Bob the drag queen is a traitor, and it's because you're always so defensive, and left it at that. Rightfully so. People in the group are like, wait a minute, yeah, that makes sense. But then he flips it back onto Nikki and Ciara. He's like, I think one of you guys are a traitor because you guys were in the coffin. And then the group just kind of builds off of that. Nikki gives her defense, Ciara gives her defense, and then after that, Gabby and Chrishell both turn on Nikki. And again, they were all in this group. Chrishell, Gabby, and Nikki were all in, if you remember from last episode, they were in this little group called the Bambis. And so for Gabby to turn on Nikki, that kind of hurt her. But when Chrishell was like, you just kind of acted different after you got put in the coffin and I just saw your whole vibe shift, you could see in Nikki's face that like really hurt her, because all 3 of them were in this little group. And so for both of them to kind of like turn on her and be like, well, we do think you're a traitor, you could see it like visibly like hurt her. So after Chrishell gives her reason, the entire group votes, and they pretty much unanimously vote for Nikki. They all think Nikki is a traitor. The only person who like voiced like the fact that he wasn't so sure that it was Nikki was Tom Sandoval. He said that he was going to vote for Nikki, but if it wasn't Nikki tonight, that he was going to come for Rob. And so Rob immediately like picks up on that. He just kind of gives him like a look. But anyways, the entire group pretty much, again, almost unanimously votes to get Nikki off the show. And then of course, Nikki was a faithful, she wasn't lying, and so the whole group is really distraught. They're all like, oh my god, we did it again, like we voted off one of our own. And so then after they all do their votes at the round table, word gets back around to Carolyn that Danielle has been throwing her name out and saying that she's a traitor. And then in a little like preview for the next episode that plays on, we get clips or like snapshots of Danielle and Carolyn going at it. So obviously there's conflict here, because now word has made its way back around to Carolyn that Danielle has been throwing her name out saying that she's a traitor. So personally for me, I just think that this whole like infighting between the traitors is just really bad, like strategically. For Rob to just blindside Danielle and Carolyn last episode, that was just a really bad move, because it's like now you've got 2 traitors who are suspicious of you doing the same thing to them that you just did to the last person. So now they're both automatically like, if more people would have voted or said they were going to vote for Rob in this episode, I think Carolyn and Danielle would have definitely also voted for him. I think the only thing that really saved Rob tonight was the fact that the entire group was after Nikki and Ciara. I think if it hadn't been for those 2, I think Rob would have been kicked off the show, and Danielle and Carolyn would have went right along with it, because again, he literally just blindsided them. Because Danielle messed up so bad at the game when she didn't put herself up for a shield, the fact that she like turns the guns onto Carolyn, I'm just like, why are you doing this? Again, Rob just blindsided both of them in the last episode. They even have a little side conversation about this, about how they've got to be careful around him. And so for Danielle to just completely like blow that up in the face, I'm like, that's like not a good gameplay because none of the traitors are working together right now, essentially. Rob just blindsided Danielle and Carolyn, so they're sus about him, and now Carolyn gets word that Danielle has been throwing her name out there, so that completely eliminates Carolyn from the both of them. So it's kind of just like every traitor out for themselves. So I don't really know how they're gonna figure out who to murder in the next episode. I mean, if they're all infighting like this, I don't think this is gonna end well, and I think this season might end with all three of them actually being successfully voted out of the show. I think maybe if one of them gets voted out next episode, we might get it where the host is like, I'm gonna add another traitor to this, or maybe he won't. I don't know, but I just think this little infighting that's going on between the traitors is not helping them at all, and it's not a really good like strategic play. Like, they all have to be on the same page, and they need to stop throwing each other under the bus because it just ends up hurting themselves. Like, I don't know, I thought this episode was pretty interesting, but that is going to be the end of the recap for Traitors Season 3 Episode 5. Moving on to movies and shows that I'm watching, I just finished the latest season of The Silo, which is an Apple TV show. For those of you who don't know what The Silo is, it's a dystopian sci-fi show where humanity is like forced to live in this giant silo with like, I think it's like 100 levels or something like that. But they're all like being forced to live in this silo because the outside world is dangerous. Now, we don't know how it's dangerous or anything like that, and I'm not going to spoil anything like that because if you are interested in the show, I don't want to spoil it for you, but that's pretty much what this show is about. And I think the last season has been really good, and I think it's given us a lot of answers to the questions that we got in season 1 and that were raised during season 1. So I think if you like dystopian sci-fi things, if you like shows like Black Mirror, Altered Carbon, or like dystopian like future shows, if that makes sense, or like post-apocalyptic shows where it's not really like a zombie apocalypse, but it's like humanity is just like destroyed itself. I think if you like shows or movies like that, then definitely check this one out. I think this is a really, really good show. And then as far as movies I've seen, I finally went to go see One of Them Days with SZA and Keke Palmer. I thought the movie was pretty good. I didn't really have that many issues with it. I really liked the cast of this movie. I thought that everybody was pretty funny. I thought that everyone did a really good job. I also found it pretty entertaining and pretty funny. I didn't laugh at all the jokes, but I found a couple of them to be pretty funny. The only thing that I would say that I really didn't like about this movie was, I would say one of the, I think antagonists of this movie is what you call them, but one of the antagonists of this movie, her name in the movie is, I think, like Big Booty Bernice, and she's obviously like a watered down version of Sexy Red. Like, she literally wears red, her car is red, she's got red hair, she's got a red lollipop throughout the movie, and I'm just like, this is literally just a watered down version of like Sexy Red. That's the only thing that I didn't like about this movie, is how they like put in again like a watered down version of Sexy Red. I'm just like, okay, we could have done without that, but I don't know, maybe that was just me that just picked up on that because I haven't seen anybody else talk about that. But that's my only criticism for this movie. I think my biggest takeaway from this movie is I think we need to give Keke Palmer more roles. Like, I want to see her in more things. I think she was really good in Nope, and I think I would like to see her in more like comedy movies that also have like a little serious element to them. I think her in comedic roles, I think she does a really, really good job. I also would like to see SZA in more things. I think SZA was pretty good in this as well. Now, another show that I had plans to watch, but those plans did not go through well. I still need to watch Severance Season 2. I've seen a couple videos on YouTube, and I've heard a couple people say that the new season is really good, and I really like the first season of Severance. If you don't know what Severance is a show about people who work for this company where it severs its employees, and what severing is they get like an implant in their brain where the version of them at work is not the version of them that clocks out, if that makes sense. Like, once they enter their workplace, a different like version of themselves kicks on, and this version never sees like the outside world, doesn't go outside. All it knows is work, and then once they leave work, their outside version never sees the workplace. The version that only sees the workplace is called the innie, and the version that only sees everything but the workplace is called the outie. I really like this show. I really like the first season, and I still need to check out the second season. And then moving on to the final topic for today's video, movies and shows that I am looking forward to seeing in the month of February. At the top of my list is Captain America: Brave New World. I am really looking forward to this movie. I'm really interested to see how Sam Wilson's as Captain America fares in this movie. I'm also excited to see his new Falcon. I forget who's playing his new Falcon, but there is a new Falcon in this movie. I'm excited to see Red Hulk. This is the first like MCU movie in a while that I'm actually like, ooh, okay, I want to go see that. So I'm looking forward to going to see this movie. I also want to go see The Monkey, which is a horror movie about I believe a pair of brothers who find a monkey in their family's attic or something like that, and the monkey's like cursed, but it looks pretty good. And then a little like indie film that I didn't even know existed until I looked up what movies are coming out in February is Bring Them Down, which has Barry Keoghan in it. Now, for those of you who know me, you know I'm a Barry Keoghan stan. As soon as I saw him in this movie, I was like, okay, I want to go see this movie. It is more of an indie film though, so I don't know when I'll get to see it. I definitely won't be able to get to see it in theaters because it's doing a limited release, which means it will definitely not be coming to my state. But once it's on like digital or whatever, I'll definitely plan on renting it. And then a bit of a side note, the Mufasa movie has apparently made like 600 something million dollars at the worldwide box office, which I mean no harm, but I haven't heard a single person say anything about this movie, which obviously means I'm not its target audience. But when this movie's trailer dropped, I saw a lot of people talking about like, oh, this movie's gonna flop, like we're so tired of like Disney live action remakes. And this movie is a prequel of a live action remake of a Disney classic. That was a lot, I know, but everybody who hates like Disney remakes, especially the live action remakes and the Disney like sequels and prequels and live action sequels and prequels, y'all better get used to it, because of this, the fact that this movie is making $600 million in 2025, where the internet has collectively said that they're over live action remakes of Disney classics. Clearly not. Like, clearly the general audience does not care. As long as it's a family movie and as long as the kids are entertained, they'll go see it. So I think for the next like 5 years, I think Disney is going to be pumping out live action remakes, spin-offs, prequels, sequels, threequels even of their classic movies, just so they can bring in a lot of money, because Disney's had a rough past couple of years ever since COVID. But that is going to be it for this week's Wednesday watch list. And if you made it to the end of this video, I just want to give you a very big thanks, and your attention and just you watching this all the way through is much appreciated. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye!